Hello and welcome to this lab on creating motion graphics for social media. I am Luisa Winters and I am a certified Adobe instructor for After Effects and several other Adobe applications. This lab includes some exercise files and a workbook in PDF that you can copy. I'd like to ask, however, that if you are watching this for the first time, that you just relax and watch. You can always follow along at a later date, either watching this recording or following the workbook. Due to time limitations, I will cover the material fairly quickly. If you are following along, please copy the materials onto your hard drive. I will place mine on my desktop. There are only a few files included and we'll use these throughout the whole lab. Additionally, you can also copy over the same library and open the assets in After Effects. If you're following along, please open After Effects and create a new project. So click on the New Project button and now go File, Save As. I'm going to save mine on the same directory that my files are. I'm going to create a folder in here and I'm just going to call it AE Project. And I will save my project in this folder. I'm just going to call it L575, which is of course the designation of this lab. Now I'm going to click on the Save button and I have my project created. Now let's create a composition. To do that, just go to Composition, New Composition, and make it 1920 by 1080 at a frame rate of 29.97 frames per second. You can either type those values in here, or you can choose one of the presets. The HDTV 1080 29.97 is perfect. I'm going to give this composition a name. I'm just going to call it Keyframes. Let's go ahead and create a solid. For that, go Layer, New, Solid. And I'm going to make my solid dark green, and I'm going to call it green, and click OK. If you look in the timeline, you will see the solid right in here. You can expand that layer, and you can expand transform. In here, you're going to see anchor point, position, scale, rotation, and opacity. You could type some numbers in here. You could click and drag the solid right here in the comp panel, but we're going to do some keyframing. The first thing that I want you to do is type a 20% on the scale. When you change the value of something in After Effects but don't keyframe it, that's known as a global change because throughout the whole life of that layer, that value is not going to change. So let's go ahead and type a 20 here. And now we are going to keyframe position. So what is a keyframe? A keyframe is a moment in time where you tell After Effects the value of one property. Then you go to a different moment in time and you tell After Effects a different value for the same property, and then After Effects interpolates or gradually goes from the first value to the second value. To keyframe position, click on the stopwatch to the left of the word position. Now we're going to move in time. We are going to move our playhead to around 2 seconds. And now we're going to change the value for position. We could type the value in here, or we could simply click and drag the solid. And we get interpolation. If you move the playhead all the way to the beginning, you can now play the timeline by pressing the space bar, and you will see your solid moving from left to right. If you want to adjust the value of this property, all you have to do is put the playhead on top of the keyframe, in this case, on top of the first keyframe, which was right at the beginning, and then change the value. In this case, I am moving the solid more to the left so that the interpolation is longer. And there you have it. You can copy and paste these keyframes, Control-C on Windows, Command-C on the Mac. Place the playhead at the moment in time where you want to paste, and then paste, Control or Command V. And now what you get is 4 keyframes, and the interpolation occurs in between all 4 of them. All right, let's work now with a Photoshop file. If you're following along, open the Photoshop file included with the exercise files in Photoshop. In here, you can see that I have distinct layers. I have 3 layers that represent the 3 triangles, and then I have a text layer. Let's import this very same file in After Effects. To import a file in After Effects, all you have to do is go File, Import, File, choose that Photoshop file, and because it's a multi-layered Photoshop file, After Effects recognizes this and is going to ask you about several choices. You can import this as footage, you can merge the layers, or just choose some of the layers, or you can import it as a composition. If you import it as a composition, it's either a plain composition or a composition where you retain the layer sizes. This is the one I want because not all of my layers are the same size, and I want to respect that. So composition retain layer sizes it is. There is no really editable layer styles in here, so it doesn't matter the choice here. Click OK, and now you will see the drone logo layers and the drone logo composition. To open the composition, double-click it and it opens in the timeline. What I want to do is I want to animate these triangles so that they come in one at a time. So for that, I'm going to select all 3 of them. They're called Vector Smart Object. And now I'm going to press the letter P for position. I'm going to press and hold the Shift key, and I'm going to press the letter R. I can now keyframe position and rotation, but I don't want to do it at the beginning. I want for the animation to last 2 seconds. So I'm going to move my playhead to 2 seconds, and now I'm going to keyframe. So this is where I want for the animation to end. And I can just click on the 1 stopwatch, and because all of my layers are selected, they all get keyframed. So that's it. This is keyframed exactly where I want to end. Now I want to move my layers one at a time. So I'm going to move my playhead to the beginning of the composition. I'm going to zoom out. I'm going to do that with a mouse scroll wheel. And now I'm going to click on the gray to deselect the layers. I can move this one away, and this one away. And what's happening is that now the keyframe for position was added automatically. All I have to do now is add a little bit of rotation. I could scrub the value, or I could use the rotation tool. Yes, there is one. And now I can just select one of them at a time and change the rotation a little bit. All I have to do now is to select the keyframes and give them an easy ease. That's a gradual acceleration and deceleration. So I'm going to go to Animation, Keyframe Assistant, and Easy Ease. Notice the shortcut is F9. And now I'm done. All of these triangles are going to come in at the same time. That's not really what I want, but let's see what they're doing. Nice. I want for the first triangle to come first, then the second one, then the third. So all I have to do is click on the gray to deselect and move my layers like yay. And now they'll come in one at a time. First the bottom one, then the other one, and then finally the small one. About the only thing that I have left to do now is to animate the text. To do that, I'm going to turn this Photoshop text into After Effects text. So I'm going to right-click that layer. I'm going to go to Create and then Convert to Editable Text. And now I see that the icon of the layer is the letter T, indicating to me that this is now After Effects text. Because this is After Effects text, I will be able to add animations that are unique to text layers in After Effects. So let's go to the Effects and Presets panel. If you're not showing it, it's always under Window, Effects and Presets, but it should be here on the right-hand side of your screen. You're going to see in here that there's a section for animation presets, and there's a section for text under the presets. Let's choose from Animate In the one called Raining Characters In. To add this preset, all I have to do is to put the playhead at the moment in time where I want for the animation to begin. And that's about here at around 2 seconds, 13 frames. And now all I have to do is drag this preset to the text, and I am now done. If we play this, you're going to see that the triangles fly in and the text rains in. Let's watch it. Now let's animate an Illustrator file. From the exercise file, open in Illustrator the file named waves.ai. And this is what the file looks like in Illustrator. Let's check the layers. I have several layers. I have wave 3, wave 2, wave 1. I have the boat. We have the clouds and we have the sky as a background. Let's import this file into After Effects. Let's go to File, Import, File. Let's choose that file. And because it's a multi-layered Illustrator file, After Effects is asking me what I want to do with it. And of course, I want to import it as a composition, and I want to retain the layer sizes just like what I did with Photoshop. I'm going to click OK, and now I'm going to see the waves layers, and of course the composition named waves, which to open it in the timeline, all we have to do is double click. What I want to do is I just want for this boat to just go from left and right. I want for the waves to move, and I want for the clouds to move a little bit. One of the things that I want to do is I want for the sails of the boat to look like they've been pushed by the wind. And for that, I'm going to use the Puppet Pin tool. To do that, I'm going to solo the boat layer. And I do that by clicking on this little checkbox under this ping pong looking icon. And that's a solo switch. And now I can grab my Puppet Pin tool. And this is how the Puppet Pin tool works. Imagine for a second that the boat is made out of rubber, and now I'm going to use pins and pin it to a cork board. And now I can stretch it, I can deform it, and that is done via a mesh. Pretty much like the pin tool in Photoshop. So let's go ahead and select the Puppet Pin tool and click on several points right here at the bottom. I'm going to click on this sail and on this sail as well. In order to deform the boat via keyframes, I'm going to press and hold the Control key, which is Command on the Mac. And my cursor, when I position it on top of one of the pins, is going to look like a little timer. And this is my visual indication that when I click and drag, keyframes will be formed. And as I drag, you're going to see that there is a playhead in the timeline that is moving. After I'm done, the keyframes are created. All I have to do now is select the layer, press the letter U, and that will make my keyframes visible. I want these to go even slower than what they are, so I'm going to click on the name of the property that contains the keyframes, and that will select all of them. I can now press and hold the Alt or Option on the Mac key, and now I can stretch the keyframes kind of like accordion style, so that they all become slower, but proportionally to each other. If I play this from the beginning, you're going to see that indeed the sails are slowly moving a little bit. So I'm going to unsolo the layer so that I can see it. And now I want to animate the boat so that it moves from left to right. But before I do that, I want to pre-compose the boat so that all of my keyframes for the Puppet Pin tool are maintained. So for that, I'm going to right-click and choose Pre-compose. What pre-composing does is that it puts this boat and its keyframes into another composition, and it brings the composition back in here. So I want to move all attributes into the new composition, and I'm going to call it boat and click OK. Once I have my boat composition, I am ready to animate. So I'm going to change the anchor point. I'm going to use the anchor point tool here, and I'm going to move the anchor point of the boat here towards the bottom of the boat. With the boat pre-comp selected, I'll press the letter P. I'm going to move my playhead to the beginning, and now I'm going to scrub this value so that my boat goes left. I can now keyframe the boat. I'll move my playhead to the end of the composition, and my composition is 30 seconds. If yours isn't, or if you want it shorter or longer, doesn't really matter. You can change the value of the composition here in composition settings. Just type the new duration in here and you're set. I'm not going to do that because I want it to be 30 seconds. And now I'm going to scrub this value so that my boat goes from left to right. Now I want to add some rotation keyframes so that the boat looks like it's undulating with the waves. So I'm going to move my playhead to the beginning. I'll make sure that my boat pre-comp is selected and I'll press the letter R. I'm going to keyframe rotation and I'm going to just turn the rotation a little bit like yay. And now a little bit up like that. I can select both of those keyframes and copy, Control C, Command C on the Mac. And now I can paste these here, Control V, Command V. And now the boat will be undulating like yay. And I think that's enough. And let's see what we have now. And that's exactly what I want. Now I want for the waves to just move left and right. So I'm going to select all three of my waves and I'm going to press P for position. I'll bring my playhead to the beginning and I'm going to keyframe all three of them. Now I'm going to click on the gray to deselect and I'm going to change the X value of all of the waves so that one goes forward, one goes back. And now I'll move my playhead to around 2 seconds or so. And I'll do the same, but the other way. And let's see the animation. That's exactly what I want. I can now copy those keyframes, Control C, Command C, and paste Control V, Command V, and I'll do it throughout so that the waves are always undulating. I'll do it with the next one as well. Copy, paste, and you can even select a whole bunch of them and copy. And now when I paste, I'm pasting actually 6 keyframes. And I'll do the last wave and I'll copy all 6 of them just to make it a little bit easier. And there you have it. Now the waves are undulating, the boat is going, the sails are being pushed, and all I have to do is to animate the clouds. I'm going to animate the position of the clouds just a little bit. So I'll keyframe them at the beginning for position. And now I'm just going to move the X value a little bit to the right. And my animation is done. Now let's take a deeper look on text animation. For that, please go ahead and create a new composition. To do that, composition, new composition, make it 1920 by 1080 at a frame rate of 29.97. I'm just going to call this composition text animation. And there you go. Now let's type some text. Type anything you want. I am literally going to type the word anything. And now you see the text layer in the timeline. You can always double-click the layer and that will select all of the characters. You can see now that the character panel automatically opened on the right. If it didn't, you can go to Window, Character, and you can open up. But in here, you can change the font. I'm going to change it to Verdana. I am very much a Verdana girl. And now I'm going to change the scale of this simply by scrubbing this value. And I'm making it super big only so that you can see this a little bit easier. I can now grab my selection tool and I can move this wherever I want. Now, let's take a look at what we have in the timeline. If you expand this layer, you're going to see text and transform. Transform never changes for any layers that contain pixels. That's anchor point, position, scale, rotation, and opacity. And if you expand text, you're going to see source text, path options, more options, etc. And let's talk a little bit about source text. This is not gradually going to take you from one word to the next. These are keyframes that are going to form, and they're going to be hold keyframes. In other words, first you'll see one word and then another word. There will be no interpolation. So just for now, we're not going to go over that. Let's go to path options. In here you see path and you have a choice, which is none or none. And that's because we don't have a path on this layer. In After Effects, paths belong to layers. So you have to have the layer first and then you create the path. To create the path, simply click on the layer name. And now you can grab any of these tools, like say the rectangle, rounded rectangle, ellipse, etc., or simply grab the pen tool and draw your path. That's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to click here, click and drag, and then click here, just to have like a swoosh type thing. As soon as you do that, you're going to see that now path options give you the option of mask 1 because we just created it. As soon as you click on mask 1, several things will happen. The text is going to snap to the path, and you're going to see 5 properties in the timeline that you did not see before. In here, these are pretty self-explanatory, so I'm going to go over them pretty quickly. Reverse path, self-explanatory. Perpendicular to the path, which is each and every character perpendicular to the path or not. Force alignment, that's a good one, right? And then first margin, which you can scrub. And the last margin is not going to work because if you look in the paragraph panel, you're going to see that we're left aligned. Because we're left aligned, only the first margin works. If we were right aligned, only the last margin works. If we are center aligned, then they both work. Also, the alignment doesn't matter if the force alignment is turned on. Now, both of them work, and you can keyframe your characters like yay, say the first and the last margins, and you can then separate the values like that. You can select the keyframes, go animation, keyframe assistant, easy ease, and there you have it. And now your text is animating like an accordion. All right, we're going to go ahead and delete that mask. For that, select the layer, press M for mask, and now you can click on the words mask 1, press the delete key, and we're done. I'm going to change the alignment of the text to be left aligned again. Now, let's go ahead and add some animation to this text using animators. Here in the timeline, to the right of the word text, you're going to see animate, and you're going to see this little playhead or menu. You can click on it, and these are the animators. Let's go ahead and add an animator for position. To add this animator, all you have to do is click on the word position, and you got it. Now you have the animator in the timeline. In here, you're going to see the property for position, and I'm going to change the Y value so that my characters go up like yay. You also see something called range selector. If you expand the range selector, you're going to see the values for start, end, and offset. Let me zoom into the comp panel so that you can see this a little bit better. If I click on either start, end, or offset, you're going to see these vertical lines. I'm going to switch to my selection tool. This vertical line on the left corresponds to the start. This one on the right corresponds to end. Any characters that are being affected by the animator, in this case that went up, are going to be in between these two lines. And these lines move. They can animate. So if we move this playhead to the beginning, I'm going to zoom out so that you can see this a little bit better. I can now animate the start value. Remember, that's the left line. And as I animate the line going from left to right, my characters get the effect taken off, so to speak, and they obviously go down to the original position of the characters. If I play this, this is what we have. I can animate the end value, which is the line on the right. I'm going to undo this, which is Control-Z, Command-Z on the Mac. And now I will animate the line on the right so that it goes from a value of 100 to a value of 0. As that line moves to the left, the characters fall down in that fashion. Now, what I can do is I can add a mask to these characters. So right here, after the characters have fallen down, so to speak, I can select the layer and now grab my rectangle tool and I can draw a mask around my text. And now if I play this, they just fall down like yay. I can even add motion blur, which is this little icon. It looks like ping pong balls, several of them. And don't forget, if this doesn't turn blue, you have to turn it on the composition level. So make sure that these are both in there. And now we have motion blur. About the last thing that I want to show you on text animation is that you can delete this animator. So just click on the words animator 1, press the delete key. They go away. I'm going to also delete the mask. And now I'm going to add another animator. This time I'm going to add an animator for opacity. I'm going to change the opacity to a 0. In other words, we won't be able to see the text. Now, in this add menu, I'm going to add another selector, but this time for wiggly. In After Effects, whenever you see the word wiggly, wiggle, it really just means random values for whatever property. In this case, it's going to be opacity. And these random values are determined by two things. How often, in other words, frequency, how often, how quickly do you want for these values to change, and how much. So a wiggly selector, when you add it and expand it in here, you're going to see maximum and minimum amount, that's the how much, and you're also going to see the wiggles per second, which has a default 2. I'm going to change that to a 1, and now if I play my animation, keep in mind there are no keyframes here, I'm going to get random values for opacity. Now let's talk about animating these masks. Let's create a new composition. So composition, new composition, 1920 by 1080. I'm going to name mine masks. And now I'm going to create a solid. For that, layer, new, solid. And I'll change the color to a blue. And there you have it. To add a mask, all you have to do is select the layer and then use one of these tools. I'll use the rectangle tool. If the layer is not selected and you draw a mask, what you're really drawing is not a mask, it's a shape layer, which are fantastic layers. But during this lab, if you do draw a shape layer, go ahead, select its name and delete it. And now we're going to interpolate this mask. To interpolate the mask, we select the layer, press the letter M for mask, and let's keyframe it. Once you keyframe it, you see the keyframe in here. You can now move in time. Let's switch tools to the selection tool and deselect all of the points by clicking on the outside. And now we can click on just one point or another, and we can move them however we want, and the interpolation happens automatically. Now, if in addition to that, I want to create more complex animation, like for example, I want to turn a rectangle into a star, I can do that in the layer panel. Double click the layer, it opens in the layer panel. In here, I see at the bottom a drop-down menu that says target none. I can click there and choose target mask 1. Now, all I have to do is draw my mask. In this case, say the star, and there you have it. I now have an interpolation. Now, I can also copy and paste the mask. If I am really in any panel, it could be in the layer panel or the comp panel, I can actually copy the keyframe. I can copy this one, copy it, and paste it here. So why is this advantageous to us? Well, let's go ahead and import a video file in here. Let's go ahead and choose Car on Bridge. And let's right-click it in the project panel and choose New Comp from Selection. And there you go, we have it in the composition. I'm just going to show you the contents of this video. And what we want to do is we want to get rid of that car. In order to get rid of that car, we must mask it. So let's go ahead and move the playhead to a point where we can see the car. And now let's create a mask around the car. For that, I'm going to go to my pen tool, and I'm just going to create a loose mask around the car. Don't forget the shadow of the car. As soon as you close the mask, transparency happens, and now we see only the car. We want the opposite of that. So you can select the layer, press M for mask, and you can change this to none. See where it says add? Change it to none so we track the mask, and eventually we're going to change it to subtract so that the car disappears. So now all you have to do is right-click the mask in the timeline and choose Track Mask, and that opens the tracker here on the right-hand side. Look where my playhead is. We can now track either backwards or forwards. I'm going to start with tracking backwards. So I'm going to click on this triangle and I'm going to track the mask backwards. And now I'll position my playhead yay, and I'm going to track forward. And it's doing a beautiful job. Look under the tracker. There is a panel called Content Aware Fill. We're going to use this to disappear the car. You can get rid of an object, you can change the surface, you can edge blend. In this case, clearly the car is an object. We're going to choose Object. We're going to change the mask to Subtract. Press the letter F for feather, and let's feather this about 16 pixels. And now all we have to do is tell the Content Aware Fill that we want to get rid of that. All we have to do now is click on Generate Fill Layer. So I want you to notice that I didn't change anything from here, and After Effects does the job automatically. You can see a progress bar right here at the bottom. Now that it's done, you can see the results. Now I want to show you how you track a camera. For that, let's import a file from the exercise files. So File, Import File, and choose Branch Stick. And now right-click it from the project panel and choose New Comp from Selection. All you have to do now is right-click and choose Track and Stabilize, Track Camera. You don't have to do anything else. After Effects is going to start analyzing the background. An effect got added. You can see it in the Effect Controls panel. Once the tracking is done, you're going to see these tracking points in the Composition panel. And if you hover your mouse on top of them, you're going to see this target. This is going to be the visual indication that you have of whatever perspective you want to choose. If you don't see the target, or if it's too small or too big, you can always change it right here in the Effect Controls panel. If you don't see the tracking points, click on the name of the effect and you will see them. So I'm going to choose, say, a perspective like yay, and to choose it, all I have to do is click. Once I click, 3 points are selected. I can now right-click and I can create a text and the camera. That's all I need to do. Now, if I play this, you're going to see that the text is kind of sort of attached to that point, even when the video moves. Let's try it. Not too bad, huh? So all I have to do now is I have to select the text layer. So now I'm going to draw a mask, a path, so that the text is attached to the branch. So with the text layer selected, I'm going to grab my pen tool. I'm going to zoom in. I'm just going to click here, click and drag here, click and drag here. And now in the timeline, I'll expand the text layer, expand text, path options, and from the path options drop-down menu, I'm going to choose mask 1. And now, of course, the text goes, boom, on top of that branch. All I have to do is select the text layer again, press R for rotation, and I'm just going to rotate this a tiny little bit on the X rotation so that the text looks like it's standing up on the branch. So now that I do that, I'm going to adjust the path a little bit. So I'm going to select it. I'm going to lower these points a tiny little bit, like yay. And I think that's pretty good. Now I can double click the text. I can change the size of the font. And I'm going to type new text. I'll type, say, the words branch stick. And now if I play my animation, I see that the text is attached to that branch. Now, instead of doing text, maybe I want to put in there a logo of some kind. I can easily do that simply by deleting the text. I can also delete the camera, it doesn't really matter. And I can select the layer again. I can click on the words 3D camera tracker. I'm going to click on the selection tool, and now I'm going to hover on these points and say I'm going to choose these ones now. I can now right click and create a solid and a camera. And what it does is that it creates a solid and it puts it right in there. Notice that there is a solid now in the timeline called track solid. I can now bring any of my layers or any file and I can replace that solid. For example, if I go to my waves layer, I'm going to go to the boat and I'm going with the boat, I'm going to replace that solid. To replace the solid, simply click on it, press and hold the Alt key, which is Option on the Mac, and then drag the new layer down while you press the key, and now you have the boat in there. So I get it. It's not a boat that we need, but this is just a teaching example. If we play, now we have that the boat is in there. If you need to adjust this, press R for rotation. You can adjust the X rotation. You can adjust the Y rotation. You can adjust the X rotation. You can adjust the scale. So S for scale, you can make it smaller. And you can now play it. And that boat is going to be stuck to that branch however it moves, because the tracking in After Effects is that good. Now let's go over some call to action elements. So what is a call to action? Well, a call to action is an element on graphics or on anything that compels the viewer to do something. Subscribe to my channel. Call if you have questions. Email us for a free quote, call today, something like that. That's a call to action. So in After Effects, let's just create a simple one saying, questions, call this number. So for that, let's go ahead and create a new composition. So composition, new composition, make it 1920 by 1080 and name it call to action. Now I'm going to just do a bar, so a red bar that is going to fly from left to right, and then two elements are going to come from the top and the bottom of the bar. One is going to say questions, and then the bottom one is going to have the phone number. So let's create the bar. For that, let's use the pen tool, and I'm just going to click here and here. And I can straighten it, I can move this point. And now I'm going to add a stroke, but not a fill. Because I had no layers in here, this is now a shape layer. So I only want a stroke for the line. So I'm going to click on the word fill here and say no fill, click OK. And for stroke, I'm going to change the color to a red, and I'm going to make it a little bit thicker, about yay. One more thing that I want to do is that I want for the anchor point to be in the middle of this bar. Now, I didn't do this before, but I can do it now for any shape layers that I create in the future, and that is this. If I go to Edit, Preferences, General, there is a setting in here that will center the anchor point on the shape layer automatically, and that is this one right here, Center Anchor Point in New Shape Layers. All I have to do is click OK. It's not going to help me with this one, but with the next ones that I'm going to create, it will help. So now I'm just going to grab the Pan Behind tool. Remember, I call that the anchor point tool. I'm going to click on the layer. And now I'm going to drag the anchor point of the layer to the middle of the layer. Now I'm going to click on the gray to deselect. I'm going to grab my rectangle tool. This time I want a fill, but not a stroke. So I'm going to click on the word stroke, say none. I'm going to click on the word fill. I want a solid color, and I want this one to be kind of yellowish. So that's good. And now all I have to do is draw my rectangle. So I'll draw it about yay. Notice where the anchor point is. As soon as I release my mouse cursor, the anchor point will be centered in that layer. I'm going to click on the gray to deselect again, and I'm going to draw another rectangle here. And there you go. Now I'm going to type the word questions, question mark, and then a phone number, which is going to be just a fake 555, 555, etc., etc. So I'm going to grab the type tool. I'm going to click right here, and I'll type the word questions and then question mark. Of course, the type layer appears. I'm going to double click it. I'm going to change the color to black. And I think a Verdana is good, and that's about the right size. I'm going to move it around, yay. Now I'm going to type the phone number. So there you go, type tool, and I'm going to click here, and this is going to be 555, 555, 5555. And of course, it's a fictitious phone number. I'm going to double click the layer, change the font size so that it fits inside of that yellow rectangle. I'm going to move it at around here. So again, the animation is going to be this. The line comes in from the left, and then the two rectangles appear. So I'm going to pre-compose both rectangles. So questions with a shape layer, and that's going to be the first shape layer that I made, and then the phone number with the other one. So I'm going to select the two layers for questions, and I'm going to pre-compose. So layer, pre-compose. So remember, this is like making a new composition and then bringing that composition back in here. That's known also as nesting. I'm going to call this pre-comp questions. Click OK. And now I'm going to do the same with the other two. Select both layers, shift and click on them. And now pre-compose, and I'm going to call it phone number. Click OK, and now I have my both pre-composes. So I'm going to click on the phone number layer, and I'm going to change the anchor point so it's in the middle of that layer. The same with questions. And that will just make my animation a little bit easier. So now I'm going to animate the shape layer, which is the line. P for position, and I'm going to keyframe position and disappear the line on the left. Move to about 1 second, and now I'm going to bring the line in about yay. Now I'm going to animate the two pre-comps, and I can do this a number of ways. You know, I can have a track matte making things visible or invisible, and I can also have masks that animate. I can have whatever I want. For this, I'm going to use a track matte for questions and a track matte for the phone number. So all I have to do is I need to duplicate these layers. So with questions selected, I'm going to press Ctrl D, which is Command D on the Mac, and the same for phone numbers. So what I have is two identical layers, one on top of the other. Now, in here, in the timeline, I'm going to click on the button that says Toggle Switches / Modes, and now I can have the track matte in here. So the track mat for phone number is going to be the phone number right above it. So the alpha mat for phone number. And now the track for questions is going to be the alpha mat for questions. Notice that I'm telling the bottom of the two layers which one its track mat is going to be. So now I'm going to select both the bottom one of those pre-comps, and I'm going to press the letter P for position. Going to make this a little bit taller so we can see it better. Questions is going to come from the bottom. So I'm going to keyframe this right where the playhead is, which is after the line comes in, and I'm going to move that. Notice that it disappears. That's because the track mat, the alpha of the track mat, is producing transparency on this layer. And because I'm not animating the other one, that one is static. Once it comes up, it's going to look like it's just coming out of the line. So that's all I need. And then for the other one, it's going to come from the top. Same thing, it disappears. So I'm going to move it even more because as the line comes in, I don't want it to be visible at all. So I'm going to keyframe both of them, move in time, and now return those to where they were. So here we go. The phone number is going to come like yay, and the word questions is going to come in like yay. And that's it. I'm done with my animation. I can even select all these keyframes. I can go animation, keyframe assistant, and I can choose easy ease. And I can also time them so that the word questions come in first and then the phone number. And that's it. That's my call to action element. Now let's talk about exporting these files. So I can take any of these. I'm going to go ahead and go to the waves animation. So that was the boat. And if I want to export this for social media, I can export it as an animated GIF. Of course, this is way too long to be an animated GIF, but I could. There are plugins in After Effects that you can use to make this a little bit easier. But in truth, you can just render this movie, bring it into Photoshop, and then export it as a GIF in Photoshop. You can also export it as a GIF from here, from the Adobe Media Encoder. And that's simply going to Composition, Add to Adobe Media Encoder Render Queue. If you choose that, the Media Encoder opens automatically. Once you are in the Adobe Media Encoder, you can choose a format from this drop-down, and we can choose a GIF, and then you can choose a preset. However, most of the time, we're not really going to be using animated GIFs. Maybe we just want to export it as a video to go onto Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, anything like that. So for that, we would choose H.264 and then the appropriate preset from here. However, most of the time, we notice that the aspect ratio of these videos is different depending on which social media platform you're going to. The best way to export these things would be through Adobe Premiere. So go ahead and open Adobe Premiere. In Premiere, let's go ahead and create a new project. For that, just click on this button, Create New Project, or you could go File, New Project, doesn't really matter. Let's go ahead and create a new project, and let's save it in the same place where we saved the After Effects files. So I'm going to click on Browse. In here, I'm going to create a folder for Premiere Pro. I'll double-click this folder, and I'm going to click on Select Folder, and I'm just going to give this project the name of Export. And you will be presented with the default workspace of Premiere Pro. Let's go ahead and change this one to Editing. All you have to do is click on the word Editing in here. You can also go Window, Workspaces, Editing. And now let's import the After Effects project. So let's go back into After Effects and save it. File, Save, and back in Premiere, go to File, Import. you can select the After Effects project from here. And now you're giving a choice of which of the compositions you want to bring in. I'm going to bring in the branch stick and also the waves. I can choose one, so I'll choose the branch stick first. And now I'm going to choose the waves. To create the timeline, all I have to do is right-click and choose New Sequence from Clip. And here it is. You see the very small boat in there. Alrighty, if I wanted to create one for the waves, all I have to do is the same thing, right-click it, and then New Sequence from Clip, and there you have it. So since I have this one open, let's start with waves. If I want to export this for different aspect ratios, all I have to do is right-click the sequence in the project panel. Right now, it's hard to tell which one is the sequence and which one is the actual After Effects composition. So I'm going to look at a list view, and now I can easily tell which one is the composition and which one is the sequence. So obviously this one is the sequence. I'm going to call this one boat and call this one branch. You can simply click on it and then press enter or return and then type in the new name, and that's it. All right, so if I wanted to export boat and say for a different aspect ratio, all I have to do is right click and choose auto reframe sequence. As soon as I do that, a new panel opens up, and now I can change the name of the sequence. I don't find that to be necessary, but I can choose which aspect ratio I want. Say I want it square. Notice that this is going to be called boat and then 1 by 1, in other words, square, and it's going to do a motion tracking for me. Once I click on create, it's done. Notice that it opens it in the timeline. If I play this, I see that the aspect ratio is maintained and that Premiere has keyframed some things automatically for me. If I click on the clip in the timeline, I can now look in the Effect Controls panel. I can click on the words Auto Reframe, and you can clearly see how Premiere has done these keyframes. So say I just want it from here to here. I can shorten my clip to that. I can place the playhead where I want it to start, and I can just make the clip shorter, like yay, and I can bring it to where I want it to end, say here, and I can shorten the clip, move it all the way to the beginning, and that's what I have. Let's try this again. I'm going to right-click boat. I'm going to go to auto reframe sequence, and this time I'm going to choose a vertical 9 by 16, click on create, and the same thing happens. It's going to follow it at about yay, and I can just make my clip shorter from there to say there to the end, and now it's the correct aspect ratio. To export these, all you have to do is, with that sequence selected, go to File, Export, Media, and that opens the Export Settings dialog. In here, if it's for social media, you really want H.264 and choose the appropriate preset. If it's for Facebook, if it's for Twitter, if it's for Vimeo, for YouTube, you will see them. Click on the words, on these blue words here, tell it where you want to save it, and click on Save. I'm going to send mine directly to the L575 folder that I have on my desktop. Click on Save, and now click on the Export button here at the bottom of this panel, and the rendering will happen automatically. This is Luisa Winters. Thank you for spending some time with me. If you have any questions, please email me at luisa@midatlanticdrones.com. You can also watch some free training on my YouTube channel at youtube.com/c/Mid-Atlantic Drones and go to the playlist for After Effects. Before we end, I'd like to add that Adobe is looking for designers who are new to motion graphics to test an upcoming feature. If you're interested, please sign up by going to adobe.com/go/AEprop.